What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this one, we are reacting to the genetics of medieval Poles. This should be very interesting. I can't wait to dive in. Before we do, if you guys happen to enjoy it, please don't forget to smash subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and if you'd like to support this channel by becoming a member, all you gotta do is hit that join button to receive your exclusive benefits. Let's dive into this.
The medieval Polish tribes, including the Polans, Vistulans, Silesians, and Pomeranians, formed the foundation of what would eventually become the Kingdom of Poland. The Polans, centered in the Greater Poland region around modern Poznan and Gniezno, were the most politically dominant tribe. They were agriculturalists and cattle herders, with a developing hierarchical society led by a chieftain. Their strategic position along trade routes helped them gain power, eventually unifying other tribes under the Piast dynasty. The House of Piast was the first historical ruling dynasty of Poland. The first documented Polish monarch was Duke Mieszko, the first of the Piast dynasty. The Vistulans lived along the upper Vistula River, centered around Krakow. They are known for building strongholds or gords and engaging in agriculture, cattle breeding, and trade. The Silesians inhabited the region around Wrocław, near the Sleza mountain, a sacred site in their pagan beliefs. They were skilled in metallurgy and trade, using the Oder River for transportation and exchange. Their territory became a key part of early Polish unification efforts. The Pomeranians lived along the Baltic coast in modern-day Pomerania. Pomeranians were known for their maritime economy, including fishing, amber trade, and boat building. Their coastal location put them in frequent contact with Scandinavians, Baltic peoples, and Germanic merchants. The tribe shared common features of early medieval Slavic society. They practiced slash-and-burn farming, growing rye, oats, and barley, and raising cattle, pigs, and sheep. Skilled in weaving, blacksmithing, and pottery, they produced goods for local use and trade. Villages were organized around gords, fortified settlements that served as political and religious centers. Pagan beliefs dominated until Christianization in the 10th century.
Hey, that Pomeranians sound like they kind of had it down pat. They kind of could do everything. They kind of took everything from all the other tribes and peoples around Poland and used it for themselves, which is absolutely awesome. But I guess the Polands were the ones who had the best geographical position when it came to trade and everything. So that's where they were able to, it sounds like, expand their influence and create that first dynasty, which is pretty dope. But it's cool to hear like the medieval, I guess, Poland, all these different places and what exactly like they were good at and how they built what they built their life around. And the trades that they took up.
Worship of gods like Purin and sacred natural sites. Early Polish pottery was primarily handmade and utilitarian, with simple shapes and decorations like incised or stamped patterns. With increased trade and cultural exchange, wheel-thrown pottery and glazed ceramics became more common, reflecting outside influences. The tribes built gords, circular wooden fortifications with earthworks and palisades. These gords often served as tribal centers. Post-Christianization, Romanesque stone architecture began to appear, particularly in churches and monasteries. The first historical capital of Poland, Gniezno, was a Poland stronghold and a religious center tied to the early Christianization of Poland. For this video, I gathered the genomes of 7 medieval Poles, dating to 2nd, 10th, and 12th centuries.
Oh, wow.
3 of the medieval Poles I have gathered were Polans. 1 was a Vistulan, 1 was a Silesian, and 2 were Pomeranians.
That's so cool.
I ran the samples through my trait predictor tool for DNA analysis. The link to purchase, which will be in the description of the video, along with the purchase link for the 7 raw DNA files in 23andMe format. 6 of the 7 samples were male, and of the 6 samples, 3 carried Y lineage R1A. 2 samples carried Y lineage R1B, and 1 sample carried the Y lineage I1A. The most common phenotype among the medieval Poles was North Ponted, although other phenotypes, including exotic phenotypes such as Indo, Nordid, and Mediterranean, were present in the group. Here is a morph of the average predicted phenotype. The most common eye color was green, which 3 people had. No sample was predicted to have brown or dark brown eyes. The most common hair color was dark blonde, which
That's
4 people
crazy.
had.
But think about like because you think brown eyes are like very popular. Like so many people have brown eyes that none of them have brown eyes. Like freak, shout out y'all. Like I would love to have a little color to my eyes. But anyways, continue.
1 person had light brown, and 2 people had dark brown hair. Every sample was predicted to have white skin tone. Regarding hair shape, the most common predicted hair shape among the medieval polls was wavy, which 3 people scored, followed by straight and kinky, which 2 people scored. 5 people scored a Greek nose shape, and 2 people scored snub as their predicted nose shape. 3 of the 7 polls were predisposed to male pattern hair loss, and 4 of the 7 polls were predisposed to taller height. 2 of the samples were predisposed to lower odds of kidney stones.
Love that.
2 samples were carriers and had high odds of hemoglobin E disease, and 1 sample had low odds of migraine.
Love
1
that.
sample had high odds of lupus,
Hate
1
that.
sample had high odds of gout, and 1 sample had low odds of eczema. Every sample had average odds of polycystic ovary syndrome. 1 sample had high odds of age-related cataracts, and the polls were strongly predisposed to age-related macular degeneration. Every sample had average odds of epilepsy. 1 sample had high odds of asthma, and 1 sample had low odds of vitiligo. 1 sample had high odds of myopia, 1 sample had high odds of corneal astigmatism, and 1 sample had high odds of primary biliary cirrhosis.
It's really cool, like all of this, like you can find out this through I guess testing. This is actually like really dope. It's really cool to me how you can like just kind of I guess trace your origins. But are these are the genetics of like poles back in the day, or these genetics of poles now? I assume he's talking about poles from back in the day, and you kind of get to see all of the odds with these genetics. That's crazy.
Regarding their dopaminergic profile, these early polls were strongly predisposed to the warrior profile and higher dopamine levels and slower rate of dopamine reuptake, which leads to poorer stress tolerance. The early polls were split evenly between more D2 receptor sites and fewer D2 receptor sites. 1 sample had a low predisposition to Tourette's, 1 sample had a low predisposition to ADHD, 2 samples had a low predisposition to depression, and 3 samples had a low predisposition to bipolar disorder. Not a single sample had an above-average predisposition to any mental health condition, which is quite peculiar. 2 samples had high odds of autism, and 5 samples had intermediate odds of autism. 2 samples had lower levels of empathy, 3 samples had intermediate, and 2 samples had higher levels of empathy based on OXDR genotypes. The medieval polls were predisposed to lower odds of epithelial cancers on the basis of 8q24 genotypes. Nonetheless, 2 samples had high odds of breast cancer, and 2 samples had high odds of glioma. 1 sample had low odds of thyroid cancer, and every sample that had a genotype for KITLG had homozygous risk genotype for testicular cancer. Moving on to blood cancers, the samples had average odds of polycythemia vera on the basis of JAK2 genotypes and average odds of leukemia. The medieval polls had average odds of allergies, and 5 of them carried risk variants for rare conditions, the most common of which was Parkinson's disease. 1 sample was predicted to have higher levels of plasma homocysteine, while 2 samples were predicted to have lower levels of homocysteine. 1 sample had high odds of ischemic stroke. 1 sample had low odds of atrial fibrillation. 1 sample had high odds of deep vein thrombosis, and 2 samples had high odds of a wide range of cardiovascular issues. The medieval polls had a low overall predisposition
I ain't
to
gonna lie to y'all, like half of these I don't really know what they mean. Like half of them, please don't think I'm stupid. I'm just being honest. But this is like all of the finding out the odds of all of this is actually like insane.
Autoimmune disease on the basis of HLA genotypes. Not a single sample had high odds of rheumatoid arthritis. 1 sample had high odds of type 1 diabetes, and 1 sample had high odds of multiple sclerosis and carried HLA-DRB1 risk variants for MS. 2 samples had lower odds of obesity, while 5 samples had average odds of obesity. 2 samples had very low odds of type 2 diabetes, while only 1 sample had low odds of Alzheimer's. The medieval Poles had a high predisposition to alcohol addiction and low predisposition to syncope. The medieval Poles had average red blood cell count, slight predisposition to shorter telomere lengths, and mostly good iron levels with the exception of 2 samples, one of which had low iron levels approaching anemia, and the other very high, approaching hemochromatosis. The medieval Poles had a predisposition to average levels of vitamin D and slightly higher levels of LDL cholesterol. The most common blood types among the 7 medieval Poles I gathered were O and A, but one person also carried the exceedingly rare blood type AB. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Don't forget to like and share if you enjoyed it. All the relevant links will be in the description.
That was kind of cool to get to see, like, the genetics of medieval Poles. What do you guys think of that? What did you make of that? That's all we have. If you guys enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the next one. I'll see y'all next time.